Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host today, Amanda Wilkie, consultant here at BoomerConsulting. And with me today is Kacee Johnson. Kacee, thank you so much for being on this episode of the podcast with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, Amanda.
Yeah. So Kacee is the VP of Strategy and Innovation at CPA.com, the business and technology arm of the AICPA. And today we're going to be talking about something I'm very passionate about, and that's the AICPA's and CPA.com's efforts around emerging technology. Now, Kacee, I talk to a lot of firms about emerging technologies and innovation and what those things really mean and the impact that emerging technologies will have on the accounting profession. And of course, I'm always asked about resources. Where do I get my information? What resources are there out there? And of course, you, as someone that I highly respect and admire in the profession, and CPA.com, they always come to mind. So, Kacee, if you don't mind, start by telling our listeners a little bit about your role there.
Yeah, great. Happy to. So, as you well know, it's never been more important to be in touch with emerging technologies, how rapidly they are evolving and maturing, and what those capabilities bring to not just public accounting firms, but to their business clients as well. And then also how that impacts future practitioner skill sets, how that maybe changes their roles, not just internally in their firm, but also with their clients and how they're advising them. So in my role at CPA.com, I'm constantly looking at the tech ecosystem, all of the different vendors. There's about 700 of them that I'm aware of. There's probably even more that are currently trying to sell either to or through the accounting profession, and understanding who all those players are, what they're doing, what they're building, how their different features, functionalities, and different tools can really help the firms and their clients. And then also looking at what's coming down the pipeline. What are the emerging technologies? Where are they at in maybe that innovation trigger or in the maturity as they go through different, they get out of beta and firms and businesses start really testing them, and what becomes their true potential and impact. And then we lean into certain categories a little bit more than others. We've definitely leaned into blockchain. We've been looking at that for 5-6 years and what different developments that there is with that platform. And then right now, my focus this year is really on generative AI. We announced a multi-part program back in May. And we're in the thick of it right now. We'll be getting ready to release some different resources in October. So we're excited about that, but definitely looking at artificial intelligence and what that means to practitioners today as well as tomorrow.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And so I always think about, emerging technologies. Sometimes it's just what is the latest buzzword. You mentioned blockchain, and of course, I've been very passionate about blockchain and digital assets for about 10 years. But now, we're hearing a lot about generative AI. So in addition to generative AI, what are some of the emerging technologies or the latest innovations you see impacting the public accounting profession today? What else are you keeping your eye on?
Definitely prescriptive analytics. I mean, we've seen predictive analytics come so far in recent years, and there's business intelligence applications out there that are doing things they were not able to do just even 2 or 3 years ago. I think one thing that really interests me is when it can get to the prescriptive mode and start not just telling or predicting if we're looking at past trends and what's going on in the marketplace of what could happen, but also giving recommendations on how to maybe remediate potential pitfalls for an organization. I think the prescriptive analytics trend is very promising. We've obviously seen maturity come so far with RPA. I think it's really shown its true potential. So now looking further into AI and some more complex platforms and what's capable there, applying that specific to an accounting and finance function. We're playing with many different use cases right now. And then, digital twins. I think that's another one that's super interesting to me. I think that one's much further back on the maturity. It's closer to the innovation trigger at this point. But if you look at potential impacts for the profession, that's one that definitely,
Yeah. And by digital twins, Kacee, you mean like having a digital representation of something that is tangible in the real world. So whether that be a person or like real estate in a building, something that you can kind of manipulate in a digital world that you could kind of practice on or see what the impact of changes would be. Is that how you would describe it, or is there something that you would add there about digital twins?
No, I think that's a great way to explain it. And how many of us have ever thought, and I'm not saying that this will happen at the human layer, how many of us have ever thought, man, if I could just clone myself, how much easier things would be? And not that a digital twin is going to clone you, Amanda, but at the same time, it is the idea of creating a digital version of something that does exist in the physical world and that can mimic and replicate that functionality. So you can think about that in terms of multiple different kind of systems, programs, different ways to automate. I'm all about automation. The more that we can automate, all we ever talk about in this profession, because it is a very real and tangible problem, is the talent crisis and not having enough people. And one of the best solutions in my mind is, how can we automate things? How can we get things to not require a human to do, especially the things that people don't want to do, that they don't even enjoy doing, that they want to spend their time doing more valuable tasks rather than maybe the data entry or anything like that. So to me, automation is key. And if the digital twin technology will help with that, I'm definitely interested.
Yeah, there are definitely days that I look at my calendar, Kacee, and I wish I had a digital twin. I wish we could clone me, but I wouldn't be having as much fun. So I'll just stick with me in the real world, if you will. But I agree with you. I think there's a lot of opportunity for automation and really for elevation in our profession. I think that there's still a bit of stigma around accounting and CPAs and it being all about the numbers. And we're seeing with automation that that's not necessarily true. Young people don't go to school for 150 hours to learn to do data entry. And your IT professionals out there, they don't go to school and get certifications and things like that to come and, do break fix or necessarily support your tax application. They get really excited about things like automation and things like RPA. They want to be playing around with those technologies. And then I found it interesting that you mentioned RPA because, again, a lot of times I feel like the firms in our profession are just focused on whatever the latest buzzword is at the moment. And we've seen, cycle through words like blockchain, cryptocurrency, RPA, now things like generative AI. But you made a really good point. Things that we looked at a couple of years ago have matured greatly. And so firms that looked at something a couple of years ago, one of those 700 different solution providers that you mentioned, those things have changed. And now is really a good opportunity for revisiting some of those things. So, what would you recommend to CPAs? Because we're talking about completely changing what they do on a day-to-day basis. What would you recommend to CPAs to really help prepare them to harness these emerging technologies?
Well, first, Amanda, when you talk about the buzzwords, I automatically think about cloud. So cloud, you rewind 10, 12 years ago, that was the buzzword, right? But now, and so a lot of people question, do I really need to move there? Oh, is this a marketing thing? what was the last software in accounting or in finance that wasn't built native to the cloud, that was launched desktop? We're sending you a CD or a link to download locally on your computer, and that's where it will be managed. So it wasn't just a buzzword. It just took a lot of people a little bit to get there. But cloud was very similar to what I believe now some of these other emerging technologies are today. We're starting to seed it. We're starting to see its real potential impact. And you wait too long, you're going to be a laggard by the time you get there, right? But what can practitioners do today? I think a lot of times it can be overwhelming to hear about all of these new, it's like things are changing so rapidly and they're maturing so quickly that it can be almost overwhelming. You've still got a job, you've still got clients, you've still got a massive workload. We can't create any more hours in the day. And which one is going to be the really big one that's going to transform things, that you don't want to put a bunch of energy into investing in learning about something and implementing a tool or technology, and then you feel like a year later it's something else. So there's two things that I would recommend. First, I highly recommend that people get in the mindset of understanding that all of this is a journey. It's not a destination. You're not going to implement one technology and get to say, oh, there we go, I'm done. I get to check my innovation checkbox and move on. It's always going to be a journey of exploring and innovating and implementing new things. And it's not going to be just get past this one mountain and I'm done. So definitely changing our mindset in the way that we approach it. And then not feeling that you have to implement everything all at once. It's okay to lean in and really learn about something in depth. Like right now, that's why we're spending so much time on generative AI, learning about that, figuring out your strategy, doing your due diligence, and then implementing that one thing, really testing it, massaging it, making sure that it's working the way that you want and for all stakeholders, not just for one use case. And then you can then say, okay, this was a success. This maybe was a learning experience. How do we want to approach the next one? But I do think that if you look at, Gartner comes out with these amazing hype cycles every single year. There's dozens of them and they plot hundreds and hundreds of emerging technologies. We take all of that and digest it specific to accounting and finance and publish one that we release at Digital CPA every December for the following year. And if you look at whether it's ours or Gartner's and you say, okay, here's something that I really think my company could learn about. And maybe it's testing out and doing demos of 3 or 4 different companies that are in accounting and finance that have leveraged those technologies. That to me is a great start.
Yeah. I love the way you said it's a journey, because we have conversations with firms all the time and encourage them to think about innovation as an investment. And they always want to know what's the ROI on that investment. And the ROI actually may just be lessons learned. It may just be that you tried it and you can tell your firm, you can tell your clients that this technology just isn't ready yet or isn't ready for your firm or something like that. But there's not always a tangible ROI. Sometimes it's really just a lesson that is a lessons learned. So I love that you refer to it as a journey because it's very important.
And you just made a good point. It's a differentiator for your firm too. When you talked about the younger talent coming in and what they want to work with, but also the clients, they want firms that are technologically advanced. So yeah, don't look at this as an operation. Technology isn't just an operational expense. It used to be that line item for many, but it's not. It's an investment. You're right. It's also a differentiator for both talent acquisition, retention, as well as for clients.
Yeah, especially as firms look to be more of those advisors and those consultants, they need to be ahead of the game. They need to understand these technologies so that they can advise and consult to their clients about these technologies, and that not just the impact that they're going to have on the accounting profession, but what is the impact that they're actually going to have on your client base. I think that's very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Kacee, are there any ways that you're seeing firms leverage some of these technologies like the generative AI or RPA, anything specific that you can share that you see firms out there doing?
Yeah, it's funny right now because we're in the thick of it with our AI research project. We're interviewing a lot of firms to find out what they're doing, and it's interesting. I've learned that a lot of them are using it for tax research. That's definitely a category I'm seeing being adopted faster and faster. Some of them are using it more on the marketing side of things, building out not just content for educating, but also automating some of the email, all of their email functionality. Some interesting ones I saw from a mid to large size firm was they invested in integrating through the API for the new ChatGPT into their Workday application, and they were able to automate a lot for their employees all of these HR questions. So that was an interesting use case that I saw as well, more internally facing. I think right now, whether you're looking at ChatGPT or one of the other hundreds of GPT platforms, it's very, very good at the generative piece. It's not so great at the delivery piece. So you got to keep that into context when looking at the client, anything client facing. But I think it's only going to continue to improve, and we'll see that evolve too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I talked to a firm recently that is leveraging Azure's open AI services. So they have created kind of an internal chat GPT. And so they've told their staff, this is where you should go to actually play around with it because it's a little bit more, I won't say secure, but the privacy is a little bit higher on it. So instead of going to a public facing tool, they have set up something internally. Again, it's an innovation. It's just an investment in the technology that their staff can play with. And they've just got amazing feedback from their staff. Their staff are super excited to have this tool and be able to play around with this tool.
Absolutely. And they get, it only goes back so far in the context, but if you're getting a quick, pretty intelligent, if you've played with any of these, pretty intelligent response, you're not taking it right there as it is, but trust but verify, and you're going through and massaging and kind of figuring out what you want to cherry pick from it. It really is quite powerful. It's better to me. I've kind of replaced using Google searches for the time being to just asking ChatGPT things because I don't have to deal with all the ads, all of these different websites that a lot of them just quite frankly are garbage that I don't need that content. And I just get a quicker, better quality answer from.
Yeah. And I think you make a really good point, the trust but verify point. I mean, these technologies are not going to replace humans. They're not going to replace CPAs. What they are is they are a tool for us to use. And like you said, they're developing and they're getting better and better every day. So it's really a lot of opportunity ahead for our profession.
100%. I have found so many times asking ChatGPT something that it's just quite frankly completely wrong on or doesn't understand it. But it's going to evolve. It's going to be really giving better functionality in the tools that CPAs are already using. So lean in a little bit. Don't be scared of it. Play around with it and then figure out what your current providers are already doing to leverage the power of those tools. And I think that's a good start.
Yeah, and Kacee, I am so thankful that we have someone like yourself and CPA.com in our profession that's really staying on top of these emerging technologies and helping the rest of the profession really harness them as well. So I personally thank you for that. And also want to say thank you for your time today and your insights. I really appreciate it. And for our listeners out there, if you enjoyed this conversation, we do release new episodes every Tuesday morning. And today we talked about emerging technologies, but we also cover topics related to things like leadership, process, talent, and growth. And what all of these topics really have in common is that they are critical to your firm's success in helping you solve a crucial business issue in 20 minutes or less. So if you like the conversation today and what you heard, please feel free to subscribe, and thank you for listening. Kacee, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Have a great day.